Hey, what's new and exciting? It's Kevin O'Shaughnessy here. I hope you're staying safe during this whole COVID-19 lockdown. And since you are stuck inside, let's play a little guitar, all right? So I was talking last week a little bit about Metallica's Master of Puppets. We were talking about how certain musical patterns can help evoke certain emotions, right? And we talked about the very introduction of the song sort of drawing us down into the seventh circle of hell. At least that's the way I interpret it, right? So as the riff goes down the chromatic scale, there are patterns and pauses that kind of let you think that maybe you can climb your way back up, but nope, the riff keeps driving down, and eventually the notes get closer and closer together. And so it's a very cool effect, this idea of falling and kind of stumbling, maybe getting back up and then falling down and then falling down even faster until you hit the bottom. So today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the next part of that introduction. And I also want to give my take on the verse riff. A lot of people have been talking about this over the years, and honestly, I've never heard anybody talk about it quite the way I talk about it. Maybe I've just missed it. You guys can tell me in the comments, but let's get going. So the second intro riff, you guys probably know what it is. I'm going to probably be doing all of this stuff in alternate picking, so I don't want to hear a lot of bumps in the comments. But the riff, I'm sure you guys know it, goes like this. Okay? Now what I like about this riff is much like the intro, it's got a pedal. Only this pedal, instead of just being the muted low E, like so, is an alternation between E and F. So I like that. It's kind of the Jaws theme. Right? Danger is lurking, right? I think that's kind of funny. I don't know if that was an inside joke or not, or if it's just something that, maybe it started out as a technical exercise, maybe it was just something that sounded cool. I don't know. But to me, to sort of hear Jaws in this, I think is kind of cool. So the riff, though, the rest of the riff, the melody of the riff, so that's the pedal, this E-F alternation. But the melody of the riff, that part right there is very much like something that we had talked about in one of the improvisation videos. The idea of having these static licks. They move very fast back and forth, but they don't go anywhere. Can really give you this sense of spinning your wheels. Now, again, in the context of this song, I've often held that it was a combination of the lyrics, right? The point of the song, the music that supported the lyrics, and the performance of the music and the lyrics. And that trifecta, that's the thing that really makes this song great. It's that combination. All three of the elements are there. This is another one of those things where the writing helps to create that sense of anxiety, right? Which I think this song really needs, right? If you put the lyrics, for the most part, except in the bridge later on, are told from the standpoint of the manipulator, right? Whether it's some kind of substance or whatever, the master of puppets is the one who is speaking throughout the vast majority of this song. And so if the lyrics are the manipulator, then the music kind of feels like the manipulated. All right, so to me, that's kind of a cool way of getting both characters out in the song to really present them both in the song at the same time. And so also doing this riff in, or most of the riffs actually, in all downstrokes, also creates a sense of tension, because that's hard to do at 200 plus beats per minute. So you take a static lick or a circular lick, something that's basically just going up and down, and you put that with a cool sounding pedal and all downstrokes, and now you've got a riff that creates a sense of anxiety and really creates this sense of being trapped, like you're not going anywhere. This riff doesn't progress. Eventually it just switches to a new riff, but it doesn't progress, right? It just stays in the same spot. So it stays in the same spot until you get a new turnaround, you get a new tail on it that leads us into the verse riff. So that to me is really cool. All right. So now let's talk about this verse riff. I've heard so many people talk about this. I've seen a bunch of transcriptions. You all know which riff I'm talking about, right? That riff. The tail of this, people have been arguing about what that time signature is since the song came out. I've even seen a video in the last couple of years where the creator of the video was talking about the dropped 30-second note. And he brought in a friend who had all this spectral imaging and all of this kind of stuff. I forget who put it out at this point, but I remember laughing when I saw it, because seriously, if you think about it, the song is in, it's 200 plus beats per minute, okay? 30-second notes at 200 plus beats per minute. Nobody's gonna hear the difference in 30-second notes. And to expect that level of performance from a band who was nicknamed Alcoholica during this period in its career is stretching it. Now, what I think is going on, and I've seen people perform it this way. I've seen covers performed this way. I've seen other instructors talk about it, but they don't really talk about why it's messed up on the recording and why it's sort of still messed up in performances. Okay, so here's what I think is going on. I agree with many of the people out there that tail is in 3/4. Okay, so if we're counting this out, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1. Okay, that's what I think is supposed to happen. That's how I think the song is intended. Okay, now here's what makes it sound messed up. If you listen to the drums by themselves, okay, and I put a link down in the description below. As a matter of fact, there's links down in the description for the drum track by itself, the guitar track by itself, and the bass track by itself, and a lesson by Kirk, which I'm going to talk about in just a second. So if you listen to the drum track by itself, basically all of the hits are there for that tail to be in 3/4. The problem is that this pair of notes, all right, those two pairs of notes, I should say, this G to A, when Lars plays the rhythm that goes along with that, he's early. He sort of jumps the gun on the beat, okay? And that's where part of the problem is. So when you listen to the drums by itself, you listen to it, you'll hear him playing 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, right? He speeds it up. He's early. He jumps the gun. Now what's interesting is then you take James's part. Now James was the one at this point, he was laying down all of the guitar track, all of the rhythm guitar tracks, and Kirk would come down and lay down the solos. And I'm not sure, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not sure that that's changed over the years. I'm pretty sure that that's still the way they record their songs. But James recorded the rhythm guitar parts. And when you listen to James's part, he starts out those pairs of notes at the right time. But the second one is rushed, right? So basically Lars is rushing the first half of that tail, and James is rushing the second half of that tail. Now when you listen to Cliff's part on this is where Cliff's part is actually kind of a mess, because there are times when he rushes the whole riff as if he's trying to keep up or glue together Lars and James. But there are other times where he's very clearly playing it in 3/4. You can actually hear him play the note in between the two G to A pairs. So he's actually playing it, right? There's a note in the middle. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and... Whereas James makes very sure to put a space between that. 1 and 2 and 3 and... right? There's a space in there. And you can hear it, like the noise gate kicking in on that too, to really separate those notes. Now, the funny part is, when, God, what was it, the 20th or the 25th anniversary of Master of Puppets, Guitar World did a huge layout on, they did a huge spread on that. And they had a bunch of rare photos, new interviews, all this kind of thing, and a bunch of transcriptions. And Kirk Hammett came in to give lessons on these riffs. And he very clearly, again, link is in the description below, he very clearly plays that riff, that tail, in 3/4. He demonstrates 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Very, very clear. So what does that mean for that riff? It means that you're basically, at least at the time of recording, and this still sort of happens during live performances now, it means you've got 3 different guys interpreting the same riff, the same 3/4 bar, 3 different ways. All right, and the effect is this very rushed, very sloppy sounding performance. But again, it works. Why? Because if we are to assume, like I said earlier, that the music at this stage of the song sort of represents the manipulated in this, well, they're not going to feel really comfortable, right? They're going to be uneasy. And this whole thing is going to make a lot of sense in that context. Okay, everything is going to be a little rushed. Like I think I said a minute ago, you're doing this all in downstrokes, that creates a certain tension that doesn't exist when you do it in all alternate picking. That tension of having to play that for so long, it's a muscle tension, and it comes through in the instrument. And I did recently discover that that was created with a bit of recording studio fakery, which I was devastated to hear, but the effect actually is still the same. It still sounds like they're really pushing to the edge of their abilities, and that creates that sense of anxiety. So if you're a band trying to cover this song, I don't know that I would necessarily try practicing it that way. To me, this is one of those things that is unique to Metallica's performance of their own creation. This is just the way they play it. Each of these guys feels it a little differently, and there it is. And it just happens to work within the context of the song, which I think is really cool. And that's an aspect that's really not taken into account when newer artists create music, especially in metal. I mean, everything is quantized so much. I mean, I record my own music and music for other people, and I will freely admit to quantizing a lot of the performances and making things really, really tight. But in doing that, you miss those kinds of happy accidents, all right? Or you miss something that maybe nobody is really aware of when they're doing it, but it contributes positively to the meaning of the song and the emotional content of the song. So that's what I got for you this week. Listen to those tracks and tell me what you think in the comments. Tell me if you think that I'm on the right track with that, or if I'm just full of shit. It really doesn't matter, but let's talk about it. This is a great song, and people have been talking about particularly that riff for years. So what do you guys think? Hit me up in the comments. In the meantime, subscribe, hit the notifications bell, and above all, stay safe during the lockdown. And if you or anybody else you know is getting sick with this coronavirus thing, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and I will see you in the next video.